Hi guys. So when it comes to fashion dolls, it's no secret that they very often just come and go, right? Here one day and gone the next. The toy industry is one that is always evolving, always moving forward, and not every doll line is able to keep up with the pace. In fact, it's very, very rare that a doll line is able to do that. The vast majority of doll lines are only on the market for a short while before they're ultimately canceled and their company just moves on to what they hope will be the next big thing. And that's basically what today's video is about. Doll lines that were canceled, but specifically doll lines that I feel were canceled way too soon. Which I guess you could argue is technically any doll line. But I do think that a lot of doll lines, well, I won't necessarily say that they deserved their cancellation because that sounds mean, but I'll say that they probably showed us everything they had to offer. They set out to do what they wanted to do, and it just wasn't successful, and that's fine. It's the circle of life. Like, for example, My Scene. Do I want more My Scene dolls? Absolutely. Would I have wished for My Scene to be discontinued in 2011? Not at all. But My Scene ran for nearly 10 years, and I really think that was more than enough time for Mattel to give them an identity and an impact, and it was just kind of their time to go, honestly. And from their ashes rose Monster High. You see what I mean? But there are other doll lines where it's just as I said, it was too soon, right? They had the talent, they had the potential, but for one reason or another, they just weren't allowed the opportunity to give it to us. And I know that reason is probably low sales because, like, what other reason is a doll line canceled for, right? But I still want to believe that had they been given a little more time, they could have been something truly great. And maybe I'm just idealistic or biased because I personally really like a lot of these lines, but I don't know. Obviously, this is a pretty subjective line of thinking. So, without further ado, here's some of those doll lines that I personally think were canceled way too soon. In really no particular order, but I did arrange them in an algorithmically friendly numbered list. Number 1. Failfix from Moose Toys in 2020. Failfix kinda sits in a weird spot on this list, because this is a case where I do think I like the concept more than the actual dolls, and I can acknowledge that the execution was perhaps not all of the way there, and I'll explain what I mean. By the way, she's kind of messy because I had to dig her out of my closet, so be nice. So, Failfix, I think, has one of the most unique gimmicks I've seen in a doll. When you first see them in the package, they look a total mess. Their hair is jailed in this insane, messy hairstyle. Their makeup is trashed. You can't see their outfit. They look a hot mess. And like they're supposed to, the concept is basically that they had a DIY makeover go horribly wrong and now they need your help to fix it. You brush out their hair so you can style it properly. They have a cute outfit underneath the packaging, and the faceplate comes off to reveal the proper look underneath it, which I think is cute. I think there's a lot of value in like turning a doll's unboxing into a whole experience. It's a really fun way to connect with her, especially for kids, and the dolls themselves are really cute too. I think they have really beautiful faces, and they came in a variety of different body types, pretty decent articulation on top of it. The quality in other places maybe wasn't necessarily there. The clothing features a lot of printed on details and cheap fabrics, and also a controversy with art theft that they had to correct later on, so that's not great. But I put them on the list because I think this was a concept that was worth exploring and seeing how it grew, and also because I think the reason they were discontinued is just kind of stupid. Okay, I'll admit I don't know if it's the reason they were discontinued, but I do think it was a contributing factor to Moose just not wanting to continue on with the brand, because they were canceled pretty immediately, like only a few months after they were first released, I'm pretty sure. Anyways, there was a lot of controversy with them. A lot of parents believed that the marketing was pretty problematic and that the dolls were sending the message to young girls that being bad at makeup and being not fashionable meant you were a failure. Chief executive at gender equality organization, the Fawcett Society, Felicia Willow, told the Sunday Times, "It's disappointing that sexist stereotypes persist. It's about time toy manufacturers and retailers woke up and dragged themselves out of the dark ages." Which, I don't know, I think you just need to look at the dolls to see that they're not necessarily taking themselves that seriously. Like, bad hair days happen to everyone. Most people who wear makeup can relate to trying something new and maybe messing it up and needing to fix it. Could you argue that it's unnecessary and unhealthy to place so much emphasis on makeup and fashion in a product for children? Probably, but these are fashion dolls, and I don't think fashion and makeup are inherently unhealthy hobbies for children to have, obviously. So it's kind of a catch-22 there. I don't know. My advice is to parent your children and don't rely solely on toys for that to begin with. So maybe it would have landed better if the concept is more like, I don't know, helping them get ready when they first wake up in the morning, or getting ready for a party when they're like running late. That sounds better to me anyways, but I also think I'm getting a little off track. I would have liked to see where the brand would have taken this gimmick because it's fun and unique, and I think they were let go too soon. That's all. Number 2, Star Darlings from Jakks Pacific and Disney in 2015. Star Darlings. I've talked about them a few times here on the channel. A lot of these in this video I've talked about before, actually. But anyways, if you don't know, Star Darlings was a project launched by Disney that was planned to be this big multimedia project. Dolls were one part of it, but there were also books and animated series, music, all the stops, really. The concept revolved around 12 girls who lived in a magical world called Starland, and they had the special job of granting wishes for the people on Earth. If you are someone who enjoys, like, low-stakes, middle-grade fiction, I do actually recommend looking into the book series. I have read them, I like them. I actually recommend them more than I do, like, the animated shorts. I wasn't really impressed with those. I just found them unpleasant and weirdly mean-spirited. The characters were all just so mean to each other for no reason. Like, I'm also getting off track again. I'm here to talk about the dolls. The reason I think Star Darlings was canceled too soon is because if you couldn't already tell by there being 12 characters and this big star motif, there was actually a zodiac theme going on. Each girl had a corresponding zodiac sign, with her character and personality being heavily based on that sign. Like, this is Vega, she's a Virgo. Like me, she's a perfectionist, an overachiever, she loves solving puzzles, and she's the smartest one in the group. We're like two peas in a pod, right? I know exactly what that's like. But because Star Darlings was canceled so soon, they never got a chance to produce all 12 characters. There were 5 in the first assortment, and then there was a budget line that added 2 additional characters, but that was all they got. And I just think that's unfair. That's 5 zodiac signs that never got dolls, and 7 that never got deluxe dolls. I personally really love an astrology theme. I wish they were more common in dolls. I love seeing how the zodiac signs are interpreted into characters, into fashion. And I think Star Darlings had some really great character designs that deserve to be turned into dolls. And the dolls are also just really cute. I love their faces. They're so fun and so expressive. They have that very quintessential Disney animation style to them, and the clothing quality is also really great too. Overall, like, pretty stellar dolls, and I think it's actually tragic that we didn't get all the characters that we could have. Number 3, Hairdorables Hairmazing from Just Play in 2019. Hairdorables Hairmazing is a spin-off of Hairdorables, which was a line of hair play-themed blind box dolls. They were on a pretty small scale, but Hairmazing turned them into proper fashion dolls, which I'll say that the original Hairdorables are actually really cute too. I collected them for a long while. They got me back into collecting, actually, but that's a story for another time. It's difficult for me to say exactly how popular these were. My instinct wants to say not very. I know they were not incredibly well received by the general doll collecting community way back in 2019. A lot of people just felt they were too cartoony, and I saw a lot of people that really hated like the big oversized earrings, which I always thought was just a strange thing to fixate on. And also, why do you hate fun and whimsy? Kidding. Obviously, this style of doll isn't going to be for everyone, and like that's fine. And maybe I can admit they weren't like on the cutting edge of fashion, but I still think they are so adorable. And they were doing some cool things too, you know, being a doll line centered around hair. It's literally in the name. There were some cool hairstyles going on. And also, to this day, I think Hairmazing is the only doll line I've seen that included different styles of brush that corresponded with the doll's hair texture, which is just a really incredible small detail. Unfortunately, the dolls did release at a pretty unfortunate time, if we recall what went down in 2020. I know that Just Play, the company, was hit pretty hard by the pandemic, and that actually did really affect the production of this line. I think they would have continued on with it if they had more of a say in the matter, because we did see plans at Toy Fair for them to release certain dolls that they just never did. And it's a similar situation to Star Darlings too, where there were characters from the main Hairdorables line that never got made into dolls, which I think is just so sad and tragic and unfair. But yeah, maybe I'm a little biased on this one because I do just have a personal attachment to this line. But I do think it's really sad that they had to be shut down for circumstances that were, like, utterly out of their control, and I just wish we could have seen more of what they were capable of. Number 4, Bratzillaz from MGA in 2012. Bratzillaz was a spin-off to Bratz, which I think does not really need an introduction, but they were made pretty specifically to compete with Monster High, who in 2012 was positively dominating the doll market. So Bratzillaz took the Bratz characters and gave them a witchy makeover and a darker, more fantastical aesthetic. In the Bratzillaz lore, all the characters are actually the cousins of the actual Bratz characters, and they all just happen to have eerily similar names and are also the same age, and also all in a friend group, and also Yasmin's cousin is white and British for some reason, but whatever. I kind of choose to ignore the backstory. The important takeaway is that the Bratzillaz dolls are gorgeous. They differentiate themselves from the regular Bratz by having inset eyes, which I think are just... I'm always in awe of just how stunning these dolls look consistently. Like, they're so good. I think the line hit a really good middle ground between fashion and fantasy. It landed somewhere right in the middle, which I think is exactly what they were going for. They kind of missed with the more character-focused aspect that made Monster High so successful, but I also don't think that's really what they were going for. So I think they accomplished what they wanted to do. And the thing about Bratzillaz is that it only got even stronger over time. I think the very first release is actually one of the weakest, which is not to say bad at all, but compared to later lines, you could really see that they were like finding their stride and absolutely nailing the aesthetic they wanted. Midnight Dance, oh, such a good line. As long as we ignore Cloetta, we don't need to talk about her. Back to Magic, incredible, spectacular, literally no notes. But unfortunately, Bratzillaz would not last past 2013. And it really wasn't their fault either. MGA decided to put the Bratz brand as a whole on a hiatus in order to entirely rework it, which gave us the 2015 reboot a few years later. And obviously, Bratzillaz would not really work in tandem with the aesthetic that the 2015 reboot wanted to put out. But there's evidence of a lot of unreleased dolls from the brand that look really, really cool, and had Bratzillaz been given the chance, I think they would have continued to push the boundaries of the line and continued to serve us amazing, gorgeous, incredible dolls, and really probably would have been able to set an identity for themselves. It was something more than just this line trying to compete with another. Just like my scene, actually, because they were a Barbie spinoff made to compete with Bratz, right? And look how that ended up. I fully think a similar situation could have happened here with Bratzillaz, like 100%. Number 5, Disney VIP from Mattel in 2011. This was another one from Disney, but this time it was a series of dolls based on characters from Disney Channel sitcoms at the time, like Alex from Wizards of Waverly Place, Hannah Montana, Teddy from Good Luck Charlie, etc., etc. Now, was I a big Disney Channel kid? Not particularly. Well, sort of, as much as any kid who had access to cable was, I think. But this line specifically, I think, is interesting because... So, I don't really tend to like dolls that are based on celebrities or, like, real people in general, because I just tend to think they look really uncanny. And 90% of the time, it's just not a person that I'm a big fan of or care enough about to want a doll of them. But I guess these are more so based on the characters than they are the actresses that play them, and I think that's what makes them a little more palatable for me. And I also just think they were pretty well done. They're very stylized and kind of cartoony, but they're still very recognizable for who they're meant to be. They definitely have some of the most interesting head sculpts I've seen for dolls. Why I think this line was canceled too soon, though? First off, I think it's just a clever idea to just kind of centralize all of the Disney sitcom characters into a central doll line. It makes them really collectible, right? And you can have dolls from different franchises all next to each other and it still look cohesive. Another reason is that, okay, hear me out. I know Disney Channel is known for, like, fashion crimes against humanity. And true, very true, I'm not arguing against that. But also, I am just very endeared to the very specific Disney Channel brand of fashion. It's so fun and so completely unserious, and I think it deserved more dolls. They would have only gotten more dreadful with time, and I think I would have eaten it up. The line didn't continue past 2012, I'm pretty sure, but if it had, we could have gotten dolls of Jessie. Oh my god, how great would a Debbie Ryan doll would have been. We could have gotten Liv and Maddie, Dove Cameron dolls. Well, I guess we did kind of get that with Descendants later on, but it's not the same. And then we get to, like a dog with a blog and Girl Meets World, so maybe it's for the best after all. Number 6, Ever After High, also from Mattel in 2013. But darling, I hear you say, didn't Ever After High run for 5 years? Yes, it did, and it should have ran for 5 more. It should have ran for 10 more years. I said what I said. But hear me out. Ever After High did have a good run. I admit that, but it could have been a great run. Ever After High had so much potential that it, unfortunately, just did not live up to because Mattel seemed so intent on sabotaging it at, like, every single turn, when it wasn't immediately the breakout success that Monster High was. Mattel seemed to, like, actively resent this brand. First off, distribution of these dolls was notoriously awful. So many dolls were only available in like certain areas, and there was no rhyme or reason to it. There was a good chance that there were dolls you would just literally never see in stores. The second half of the Legacy Day dolls are a good example of this. So many people, collectors even, literally, like, do not even know these dolls exist because they just didn't get distributed. And then there was the rebranding, which by every metric was completely unnecessary, and it made all the dolls so much worse for no reason. Because it's not as if Ever After High was like an edgy or a controversial brand by any means. They were fairy tale princesses. They were basically as non-threatening as a fashion doll could be, but still somehow they weren't friendly enough. I don't even know. And I'll be frank with you, it's not even totally about the dolls, it's also about the story. And I know, not every fashion doll line needs, like, an in-depth storyline. But Ever After High had one, and it was so good. The movies still stand up as some of the best fashion doll movies ever. Some of the best cartoons, period, I would even argue. And I say that completely unironically, and it was left so unfinished, which is so unfair. And maybe it never would have been finished. It's in a doll line's best interest to keep operating as if it's something indefinite, and I guess that would apply to movies too, but also, that's fine. Like, I'm fine with that. Let the Ever After High movies continue forever and ever. I certainly wouldn't have any complaints. But on a serious note, yes, I just feel like there was so much story and so many possibilities left in Ever After High, and it's just really unfortunate that the parent company didn't believe in it and didn't really want to see what it could achieve. I just think it deserved so much more than it was given, and I really, really would have liked to see where the storyline went with more time. Which, by the way, if you haven't watched any of the Ever After High movies yet, don't let me saying they're unfinished detract you from checking them out. Please watch them. They come so very highly recommended from me. Number 7, Moxie Teenz from MGA in 2010. Moxie Teenz are actually another spin-off line, this time to the doll line Moxie Girls, but the connection is really tenuous. They're all different characters, and they look completely different from the Moxie Girls, very different aesthetics, and they're also a different scale altogether too, so I don't know. But I love these dolls. I think they're so gorgeous, and they're on this list really for no other particular reason than I think they deserve more releases. That's pretty much it. Because believe me when I say these are really exceptional quality, and the designs, they're very of their time, very 2010, but I also love that about them. They're just objectively really cool dolls. I don't own any other dolls that are 14 inches tall with inset eyes and gorgeous layered fashions, and it's just really sad to me that they only got 2 waves and then a formal line, and then that was it. Also, all the characters are college aged, which I also thought was pretty cool. I wish more doll lines weren't afraid to give us, like, adult characters, you know? I think this line was obviously something very experimental for MGA, and I think they wanted to target an older demographic. Not necessarily adults, but maybe tweens or teenagers even possibly, because these are on scale with a lot of collector doll brands, and maybe it didn't pan out the way they hoped, which I can understand. That's a really tough thing to nail with fashion dolls. But I still think they deserved better. I think they deserved more dolls. I think they would have been really beautiful and exceptionally well designed, and it's sad we didn't get more of them. The ones we did get, though, really, really great. Number 8, Barbie So In Style from Mattel in 2009. Barbie So In Style was the creation of Stacy McBride Irby, a very talented doll designer that studied under Kitty Black Perkins, one of the most iconic designers to have ever worked for Mattel, and also the designer responsible for the very first Black Barbie in 1979. And it was created as a line under the Barbie label that focused on Black characters. I'm a big fan of So In Style. I used to own a few, like I bought them when they came out when I wasn't even a big Barbie collector. So they're kind of nostalgic for me, but unfortunately, even the budget dolls for this line are like really expensive to acquire secondhand, which is also true for a lot of the dolls in this video, I guess. The early 2010s was a weird time for Barbie. A lot of people who grew up in that era seem to remember her pretty fondly, but it was also like financially one of the worst and most disastrous periods of time for Mattel in their entire history. But So In Style, I don't know how well they sold, but I think they also consistently delivered some of the most well done, well designed, and just most beautiful dolls in Barbie history. And it's cool to see, a line with such good intentions to provide representation, created and designed by someone clearly very passionate about that sort of thing, and with a very talented and creative team behind it too. One of my favorite things to see in dolls is when you can tell something was just a very personal project for the team behind it, and that they had fun creating the products for us. And I absolutely get that impression here. I can just tell a lot of love went into this line. And it also had a pretty good run. It's another case where I'm happy and satisfied with all the dolls we got from it. I just wish I could afford them. No, my issue is rather that I don't think there was any good reason for the So In Style line to be canceled. It was discontinued in 2015, and I assume that was because Barbie had that big rebranding in 2015 with the new fashionistas, but So In Style absolutely was not incompatible with the message Barbie wanted to put forward at the time, which was diversity and inclusion, right? Why not just shift that over to So In Style too and add in some of the new body types and the new branding? I don't think it had to fundamentally change that much. Especially since when it comes to fashion, often we see diversity and inclusion come at the cost of aesthetic. And I realize that sounds awful as a statement just on itself, but you see it all the times in brands that put out these big statements saying they want to be seen as more inclusive, and suddenly their clothes become really boring and they start to lack a lot of creativity and inspiration. And the message it sends isn't that underrepresented groups deserve to be included, it's that underrepresented groups don't deserve to be glamorous or fashionable. Because So In Style was extremely fashionable and glamorous, and I don't think, well, obviously there was nothing wrong with that, but it's just unfortunate that Mattel didn't think it fit with Barbie's new brand image. They definitely deserve to keep it going. And that's all the ones I wanted to talk about, which of course brings us to the end of this video. Thanks so much for sitting through it and watching me ramble about dolls. It's my favorite thing to do, and it always means so much that anyone is willing to listen to me. Obviously, this list was not comprehensive. There's tons and tons of doll lines that were canceled too soon, which means that it is now your turn. Go down there in the comments and tell me which doll line discussed in this video is your favorite, if you've bought or collected from any of these lines, and also tell me which lines you would have included yourself. Anything that's on your mind, let it out down there. And when you're done with all of that, just be sure to like and subscribe for any future fashion doll content. Thank you.